Live from Studio 67 in Florida's capital county, it's time to get fact-checked.
Access granted.
Good morning, good people of Florida. It is your Associate Director here, Public Policy, Peter Abello, and our Deputy.
Good morning. Happy Friday. We've made it through week 7.
Week 7, yes. We're almost there, but still, we will see where everything...
Yeah, we've made it past day 45, which means we've got new rules.
Yes.
And watching for
shorter time frames.
24-hour notice periods. We'll see if the House decides to have more meetings.
Right.
For their committees. It's right now they're not scheduled to have many committee meetings. They're now just on the floor. By next week, they'll be wrapping up their special orders. And then this week, Peter, they had like a marathon day.
Right. I was speaking to Rep. Valdez last night, and it was like the first time in like her, 3 or 4 years that they went like 10 plus hours. I mean,
it was nearly 100 bills. They almost emptied their entire second reading calendar.
It was quite the marathon. It was actually pretty impressive. I got to go up to the gallery a couple times, but wow, yeah, no, it was. And then at the end, after the marathon, they picked Rep. Franklin as the leader of the minority party.
That's right, to lead the Democratic caucus for what the
28.
It's not the next 2 years,
right.
But it's the 2 years after that.
Right, because it's going to be Hunchosky next.
Yes, Representative Hunchosky,
okay.
and a lot of bills, there aren't many bills left for them to consider. Just the few that were up yesterday in the last committee references. The House, starting to, bubble up those, hey, we might be going home early discussions, which sometimes happen, never really not normally follow through on. But it seemed like regular order over in the Senate, and then this week also brought us, this fabled Growth Management Day.
Right. President Pasadomo, stated her interest last week about having a Growth Management Day in rules where many, many bills were going to be heard.
A lot of strike calls. I think Tuesday, and this was a House and Senate thing, I was calling it Delete All Tuesday.
Right. Yeah. This is where they roll up their sleeves and try to input all stakeholders' concerns and I guess sometimes start from scratch. Sometimes use the base as a building point. But tell us, Jeff. I mean, what were some of the highlights of rules in growth management?
Well, we had some strike calls, some major amendments, so a lot of cleanup on some bills that had been moving through. Things on qualified contractors. That one got basically a whole new rewrite on that bill. And then, these tricky amendments popping up, amendments getting filed, handwritten amendments, like on the compatibility bill, some language about an amendment on a water park popping up. Then there were some, like the ones that got withdrawn on rural boundaries of concern. But a lot of those, I think, private provider bill, the infill bill, all, getting some tweaks, getting some language in there that would provide additional clarity on how those things would work. But one that wasn't up, we'll talk about a little bit later. And with week 7, now that we're through budget, or at least the first go around on budget, we get tax packages.
Right. Yeah.
So this has been my long-awaited week of combing through, and I think you helped me, Eddie, from the command station, helping us out with some tricky language on what things could be in each the House and the Senate tax packages.
Yeah.
But over in the Senate, we saw this language.
Now, this is 7046.
This is 7046, that's right. And in the House, they, of course, do a committee bill, but that one will be titled 7031 on taxation.
Jeff, remind us who's hosting the tax package this year?
Well, the tax package usually goes along with the budget, so it's going to be the House.
Okay.
And the tax package is normally a House product, but the last few years the Senate has rolled out a package instead of just amending the House package. The Senate, was a lot slimmer, and then they did 2 separate bills. One dealing with the IRS, the federal piggyback corporate income tax, which is certainly playing into the budget discussions this year. But I do want to talk about one issue that's in in the Senate tax package on Live Local. There were changes presented on how counties can opt out of the missing middle property tax exemption. So FAC is working with the Senate and with the House to make sure that the opt-out is preserved so that market rate housing in the counties that have an overabundance of supply of affordable housing are able to opt out, since that's not really a exemption for a charitable purpose. It's market rate, and so that's an issue. It bubbles up each of the last few years. Now that Live Local is this living, breathing thing, I think we're in year 3 of the opt-out, year 4 of Live Local. So we're trying to make sure that there is at least some consistency. I think that developers are looking for that as well.
Senator Colaudiud has some legislation that you referenced, I believe, the other day.
Yeah, she has the affordable housing bill for the 4th year in a row. She's been the steward of Live Local, a champion for that. And that bill, along with Representative Redondo's bill, have been relatively quiet. I know the senator's bill moved early, and now it's going to move twice next week. But Representative Redondo's bill got one of these things you don't see very often.
An amendment that didn't exist.
Yeah,
I feel like that's how you described it.
A fabled, invisible amendment. But so in the House Commerce Committee this week, House Bill 1389 received an amendment to the amendment. The delete all had this similar concept that's in the Senate tax package, but then the amendment to the amendment just deleted the opt-out altogether. So FAC had to get up there where nobody could see it in lobby tools or online, but we knew it was out there, got a copy of it, and had to defend the reasons why the opt-out should be in place. And, it goes along, these are property tax exemptions. So it goes along with the whole discussion this year of what does our tax base really look like to deliver on those core essential services. So it was a bit of a surprise.
Right.
It's one of those things you don't see every day, but we are in handwritten amendment season. So pull out your amendment tracker, because it's not going to get less crazy from here. It's only going to heat up.
Yeah. Well, going back to the tax package, I know Senator Avila included a provision that was part of his bill 1628, the net zero prohibition on net zero policies. It did make it into the tax package because it has local governments are not able to levy any assessments or tax related to net zero or climate change policies or a business using a carbon intensive product. But our concern is more so on the procurement process. We want, local governments want to be able to make decisions based on cost. Let's say that you're trying to replace the lighting system in a building, and that reduces cost. We want to make sure that is protected. That there's some House language that we made sure to point out to Chair Avila that includes a protection. This section does not construe to prevent a local government's authority to follow the actual state's energy policy, which is in 366701. And so he's hopefully going to be considering it. Additionally, in the tax package, we did see the same language in rural renaissance.
That's right.
Of
a lot of the changes to help fiscally constrain.
Correct, right? From 5 to 10 million in the millage change. So we're happy to see that. I know Small County Coalition's Chris Doolin got up and said some kind words to the committee.
Yeah, and the tax package, you said rural renaissance, there was this net zero issue. The tax packages on both sides have a number of policy bills that move through the process, maybe sometimes stall out, and they pop up there, like the disclosure bill on property tax that FAC has talked on. There's a lot of others that just, trickle in. So it is a behemoth. There are some fiscal impacts that we don't have yet an estimate from Impact Conference on RV and mobile home parks, some issues on TDT and how platforms like Airbnb report their taxes. So there's certainly a number of items in the tax package that are still in development. The Senate's going to hear the tax package on Monday. Usually the House bill just goes straight to the floor.
Appropriations, I believe, right?
Senate, Senate
Okay.
appropriations, we've got a few, opportunities, to watch this, and of course, it goes along with the budget. Peter, the whole session we've been talking about data centers and the changes that the governor wanted. The Senate moved. So give us a status update. Where are we now?
Well, this was quite a big week for data centers. Taking a step back, let's say 30,000 foot level, the president in D.C. has stated his desire to have a one-size-fits-all AI data center approach across the country. The governor, on the other hand, has stated his desire to have a more Florida-centric policy on data centers and AI, a AI Bill of Rights, if you will, and protecting everyday citizens from the concerns that we're hearing across the country with regards to data centers. So there has been, as I've mentioned in previous podcasts, 2 data center bills, one by Senator Avila and the other by Rep. Griffiths in the House. Both are somewhat similar. They have a couple of different provisions. The Senate one did pass the Senate floor this week, and the House version was heard twice, once in State Affairs on Tuesday and yesterday in Commerce. Now, the difference lies, and both retain local government authority with regards to comprehensive planning, LDRs. So we have the power to decide where these data centers will start popping up. As Senator Avila referenced on the floor, local governments are the first. We're boots on the ground. We know our community well, so it is prudent to have local governments be able to have a say along with citizens in citing these data centers. I will mention the House did have a prohibition, said that you cannot permit a data center within 5 miles of a school or residential property. There was an amendment in committee that changed that there was no longer a prohibition, but if there is going to be within 5 miles, you got to have some noise abatement process and then obviously follow land use regulations. Now, what is interesting about this data center conversation is that everybody's everywhere on this. We have Republicans against it, Republicans for it. We have Democrats for it, Democrats against it. The concerns really center around, do we want to have an open door to this business? Do we want to just invite them in carte blanche, or do we want to have some regulation? So it's really been an interesting conversation. We will see where it lands. We obviously support retaining local control. And I will also mention there was a air mobility bill, both Senator Harrell and Rep. Spencer, with somewhat of a bipartisan support, trying to get ahead of the curve when it comes to
vertiports.
Now it's changed. Now it's just vertiports, because at first it did preempt all vertiport and air mobility policy to the state. There was some language in there as well as preempting air safety to the state, and that would have been a little bit confusing because I know FAA has to have a say in it. But
yeah, and with that bill and some of the other things in the transportation bills that pop up, like on personal delivery devices,
right,
and
there's
a lot of these
on the sidewalks.
There's a lot of these bills that are trying to provide a framework, right, for how we adapt to the changes in technology. Like there was the AI Bill of Rights bill that's moving on one side, and then we also have bills that tweak permitting in
for
rights of way. That's something that's been going on. I know we had the major bill. I think that was like 9 years ago, or 8 or 9 years ago.
2017, right.
And those tweaks come in. Once it's like Live Local. It's like a lot of these things where once something changes, you have to kind of rewrite to make it even more clear because the initial bill didn't quite get the whole policy. Right?
Correct. There needed to be some updates to it. So FAC has been working with the industry to try to find an in-between point. I know that in part of 1220 and 1233, there were some changes on bond requirements and permitting bonds. When a county when a communications provider wants to open up a right-of-way Most counties and local governments require that they put up a bond just in case the work is not completed or is not restored correctly. So it was now the language says that the bond amount has to be tied to the restoration of the actual right of way. And so there have been those changes, and we've been happy to have a seat at the table with the industry. Yeah, so Jeff, going back to growth management, I know that we did leave one out because, like I mentioned in last week's podcast, it was Growth Management Day, but we didn't have
Blue ribbon.
Blue ribbon.
Blue ribbon or red flag or whatever the
name you want to call it.
But the blue ribbon bill, this is House Bill 299 was up this week, and it did go through some major changes, some additional local review. So now the bill says it can be developments of 15,000 acre minimum instead of that 10,000 acre change. So this actually went to 15,000. It requires two.
Now, not a lot of people. I mean, first of all, 10,000 is huge, and you would think that the number of landowners is small. 15,000.
It puts an even bigger threshold. Maybe there are fewer opportunities of that contiguous land to exist.
Right. It has to be contiguous. Right.
But then it requires 2 local hearings, and then there has to be a presumption that the blue ribbon meets the criteria consistent with the local comprehensive plan. So there can be a rebuttal process in this.
So you're telling me we have a say?
There's going to be more consistency with what's on the ground, and the county can have a finding that the blue ribbon plan is substantially inconsistent with the provisions of the local comprehensive plan. In that case, the county can deny the blue ribbon plan, but the denial must state the grounds, rules, statutes, comprehensive plan provisions, or other authority for the denial. It still doesn't have that state or regional review, but there are some more guardrails, and on the approval. And again, a bill like this,
it's a behemoth.
It's a behemoth, and we're creating a whole new process. And this is going to be the first year if this gets across the finish line, because, like we said, it wasn't in Growth Management Day, but it is up next Tuesday in rules, which is the last rules hearing.
Jeff, I hate to be so melancholy here, but this reminds me of a book that I cherish very much, A Land Remembered. And there's this in between, developing, keeping Florida the way it is, having folks come and enjoy our state.
Private property rights.
It's just it's such a debate, and we really have to. As up until now, we've all been good players in the conversation, both the legislature and local governments. We hope to keep it that way.
And we have to work together.
Yeah,
right?
we
There's
have
a balance. The last few years, we saw the establishment of the Florida Wildlife Corridor. And
President Pasadomo's priority. Yeah, absolutely.
And so each session, each successive year, the legislature gets to determine how it wants to leave its mark and leave Florida better off for the next generation. So a lot of these bills are trying to continue to attract more development because, let's face it, people want to move and live in Florida. I mean, we know why.
27 million and counting.
So it's a lot of these things as we go down the finish line we're going to be spending a lot more time on the 4th floor, so I hope you wear comfortable shoes on that hard marble.
Yeah.
Everyone can come in.
More boots.
Well, we got some fun days ahead of us, like Boots of the Capitol Day. I know. And then
this late in the game? I guess you're right.
And then I know there's some people's favorite is it Lily Pulitzer Day? No. Yeah, where everyone wears their brightest colors.
Okay.
It's a Florida Day. I know there's going to be some days like that.
There's a Caribbean Day coming up next.
Caribbean Day, listen.
Where it's going to be in the Senate portico. Come on out. We're going to have there's going to be Bahamian food, Jamaican food, Cuban food.
And listen, they got long days, the legislators, and they want to have at least a little fun when they're having 10-hour debate days and waiting for messages to bounce back and forth. But, come and see us. We always post up on the 4th floor. We got a printer and a bunch of snacks because we're going to be working the ropes.
Yeah.
It's that time of year.
Sometimes even, pulling them from the floor, having conversations.
And this weekend, we won't be going into budget conference, at least not as the taping of this, and they already sent everybody home, but budget
This is
conference
giving me
looms.
some memories of last year.
Right. Budget conference looms. We're getting closer to allocations, and maybe come next weekend, we're going to have ourselves a budget conference.
Yep. Well, thank you, Jeff. Thank you for those updates, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for taking some time to listen to Fact Check, and we will be back next week for Week 8.